Imagine a world, right, where the fate of entire nations hangs in the balance, decided by the strength of their shipyards, the power of their naval guns.
It sounds like fiction, but that was absolutely the reality of World War II at sea. A conflict that didn't just pick winners, it fundamentally reshaped the whole global order.
Exactly. And we've been looking through the sources, especially Paul Kennedy's Victory at Sea, which offers this really compelling view, connecting the battles, naval action, to the economics and the industry behind it all.
It's a fantastic lens to view it through.
And for anyone wanting to dig even deeper into this kind of strategic thinking, check out Mindful Moments. It's a YouTube channel using AI for book analysis, really good for stimulating critical thought on history.
Good recommendation.
So our goal today is really to unpack how that naval power shaped the war's outcome and led to this massive shift in global influence. We're focusing on that interplay industry, technology, and strategy.
And Kennedy lays it out starkly. The sheer scale of the power shift between, say, 1936 and 1946, largely driven by sea power. He looks at the big six naval powers back then.
Okay, who are they?
You had Britain, the U.S., France, Germany, Italy, and Japan. Britain, in the mid-30s, still had the biggest navy, technically, but was really stretched thin, policing its empire.
Right, the imperial burden.
Precisely. The U.S., meanwhile, huge industrial potential, but largely isolationist, not yet mobilized. Then you had the ambitious powers, Japan, Germany, Italy, wanting to, shake things up.
For France.
Yeah.
Kind of struggling to keep up.
Yeah. Trying hard to maintain its status, but facing limitations. It sets the stage for these incredible challenges in just building the ships themselves.
The design aspect. What were the big trade-offs there?
Well, it's this constant juggling act. You want bigger guns, more firepower. That means a bigger, heavier ship.
Which needs more armor.
Exactly. More armor adds weight, which cuts down your speed, your maneuverability. And then there's range, absolutely critical if you've got global interests like Britain or growing ambitions like Japan or the U.S.
So balancing all that must have been a nightmare for the designers.
A total nightmare. And on top of that, you had different ideas about how to use navies influencing the designs. Mahan emphasizing control of the seas, Corbett focusing more on supporting land campaigns. Different theories leading to different priorities.
Okay, so the war starts 1939. What were the immediate naval flashpoints, the big challenges in those first few years, maybe up to 42?
Things got serious fast.
Yeah.
The biggest immediate threat, especially for Britain, was Germany's U-boat campaign in the Atlantic, trying to starve Britain by cutting off its supply lines. The Royal Navy was locked in this desperate fight for survival right from the start.
The Battle of the Atlantic.
The crucial one. And then, of course, the massive shock of Pearl Harbor in December 41. It crippled the U.S. Pacific Fleet and let Japan just sweep across Southeast Asia and the Pacific.
A devastating blow. Were there other key moments early on?
Oh, definitely. Think about the Hunt for the Bismarck, a huge German battleship. Its sinking was a major blow to their surface fleet and a boost for British morale. Or the Battle of the River Plate earlier on, another British victory against a German raider.
Right.
But those events, especially Pearl Harbor, really showed how vulnerable even established naval powers could be and just how unprepared the U.S. was initially, despite its latent power. British supremacy was seriously challenged.
Then you mentioned Kennedy points to 1943 as a real turning point. Why that specific year? What shifted?
It's fascinating how Kennedy tracks it. By 1943, the sheer weight of Allied industrial production starts to fundamentally change the game at sea.
How so? In the Atlantic?
In the Atlantic, yes.
Right.
Better anti-submarine technology, radar, sonar, air cover, combined with just building more escort ships, finally started to get the upper hand over the U-boats. The lifeline held.
Okay. Crucial for supplying Britain and Russia.
Well, absolutely essential. But the really dramatic shift, Kennedy argues, was in the Pacific. American shipyards were hitting their stride. The rate at which they were launching ships, especially aircraft carriers, was just astounding.
More than Japan could possibly match.
Not even close. Like you said earlier, the U.S. was launching more carriers in 1 year, 1943, than Japan had managed to build in the entire decade before the war. It's almost unbelievable that industrial might started to just overwhelm Japanese naval power.
And Kennedy connects this directly, this material advantage, to the actual outcomes on the battlefield. He sees a direct link.
He really emphasizes that connection. It's not just about having the stuff. It's about how that material power, that productive capacity, translates directly into sustained military advantage. He draws parallels to thinkers like Marx or Brodel, who stressed how underlying economic and material conditions shape historical events, including wars.
So America's ability to just outproduce everyone else was almost a revolutionary force force in itself.
You could absolutely say that. It fundamentally altered the strategic calculus. No amount of Japanese fighting spirit or initial tactical success could ultimately stand against that flood of material. It's a powerful argument. And for folks interested in exploring these deeper connections between production, technology, and historical outcomes, resources like Mindful Moments, or, well, our other discussions here, often touch on these themes.
Encouraging that critical look below the surface. Okay, so with this industrial tide turned, how did things play out in 44 and 45, the final push?
Well, the Allies really started to leverage that dominance. The most obvious example is the Normandy landings in June 44. An unbelievable amphibious operation, only possible because of complete Allied control of the sea and air.
Projecting power on a massive scale.
Unprecedented scale. And in the Pacific, you had battles like the Philippine Sea, often called the Great Marianas Turkey Shoot, which just devastated Japanese naval aviation. The U.S. Navy was roaming almost at will.
And Japan's response became more desperate.
Increasingly so. That's when you see the widespread use of kamikaze attacks. Brave, certainly, but ultimately a sign of desperation, of having few conventional options left against overwhelming American carrier task forces and material superiority.
Fueled by that industrial engine we talked about.
Exactly. That output enabled these huge fleets that could sustain operations far from home, support the island-hopping campaign, and just grind down the opposition.
Which leads us to the end.
Yes, the final surrender, signed on the deck of the USS Missouri in Tokyo Bay. Kennedy presents this as more than just the end of the war. It's a powerful symbol of this new American-dominated global order, an order really forged by victory at sea.
And the consequences went far beyond just the end of hostilities, didn't they? This reshaped the entire post-war world.
Absolutely fundamental changes. Kennedy argues very persuasively that these naval campaigns were central to transforming international relations. The U.S. didn't just win, it emerged as the undisputed global naval superpower.
While the old European powers
declined significantly. Britain, France, their resources were depleted, their empires were crumbling, they couldn't maintain navies on the same scale anymore. The center of maritime power definitively shifted across the Atlantic.
And then nuclear weapons arrived on the scene.
Right, adding another complex layer. How does sea power function in a nuclear age? That became a whole new strategic question. But the underlying shift was clear. From a world order largely centered on Europe to one heavily influenced, if not led, by the United States. And naval power was key to that transition.
You can still see the echoes of that today, can't you? The importance of controlling sea lanes, projecting power.
For sure. The principles of maritime strategy, while adapted for new technologies, still hold significant weight in international affairs.
So boiling down Kennedy's unique contribution in victory at sea, it's really about weaving all these threads together, not just battles, but the economy, the industry, the tech.
That's the core of it. His central argument is that the capacity to produce ships, planes, equipment, and the ability to apply it effectively through naval strategy, that's what ultimately determines success in modern warfare and shapes the geopolitical order that follows. It's about the material foundations of power.
And the book itself, wasn't it a collaboration with an artist?
Yes, and that's a wonderful aspect. It was a collaboration with the marine artist Ian Marshall. His watercolors throughout the book aren't just illustrations. They really capture the feel, the atmosphere, the sheer scale of naval warfare. They add a whole other dimension to Kennedy's analysis. It makes the history come alive in a different way.
A powerful combination. So looking back at our discussion, the key takeaway seems to be that winning at sea in World War II wasn't just about tactical brilliance on the day. It was more fundamentally about this immense industrial power met technological innovation and smart strategy.
That's a great summary. That combination didn't just win the war, it fundamentally altered the global power structure, leading to the world we largely inherited.
Which makes you wonder, well, given how naval power and the factors behind it transformed the 20th century world, what does that mean for this century? How might today's evolving technologies, AI, drones, cyber warfare, and shifting economic power reshape global influence through a maritime lens?
That is the question, isn't it? Something definitely worth pondering.
A really potent thought to end on. If exploring these forces that shape our world, the interplay of economics, technology, power is something that grabs you, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss our future conversations.
And share this discussion with anyone else who appreciates digging into these pivotal historical moments.
Absolutely. You'll find a link to Kennedy's Victory at Sea and other related resources in the show notes if you want to explore further. But most importantly, keep questioning, keep thinking critically about the forces that have shaped and continue to shape our world.